You think leadership will be easy because you've shown that you're great at your craft. There's nothing you haven't seen before in your area of specialty, so you think you have all the answers to the test. But what about all of those aspects of your business that you've actually never done before? You don't know the questions, let alone the answers. How can you possibly lead a business when you don't know how to do most of the actual roles the business itself requires? Your name on the door makes you qualified to own the business, but does that make you qualified to actually lead it? Welcome to the Next Level Executive Podcast, a show dedicated to dentists who want to evolve from a clinician who owns a practice into an executive who leads a business. I'm your host, Perrin. If you own a practice that generates over $1 million in revenue and you're wondering what's next, you're in the right place. I recently read a quote, "Leadership isn't rocket science. It's much more complicated than that." The difference might be that you can actually get a degree in rocket science, but you can't in leadership. We're surrounded by people who failed or are failing at leadership. I've worked for quite a few of them. They say success leaves clues. I think failure does as well. The biggest mental mistake every early stage leader makes is assuming that they have to know how to do every job in order to be a leader. You don't. And you can't. If you do, it means the business isn't evolving, it isn't growing, it isn't increasing in its complexity, and your people are probably stagnating. When that happens, you're entering what Jim Collins refers to as a doom loop. Having the answers to the test makes you a great manager. And that's important because managers work with line employees to create outcomes and deliver results. Managers are the ones holding people accountable for KPIs. If that's what you want to spend your time doing, fine by me. I've done that role to a pretty high level, and it was a necessary role for the company I worked for. But I evolved, and the business did too. Let me be clear. Holding people accountable for KPIs isn't leadership. It's management. There was one critical inflection point in my personal experience in evolving from a manager into a true business leader. I passed through that inflection point when I realized the following. Having the answers to the test is what makes you a great manager. Knowing the right questions to ask is what makes you a great leader. I've referenced my personal story of being tapped to run the Richmond branch for Patterson several times now. It was a crucible moment in my early leadership career. One that I wasn't prepared for personally or professionally, if I'm being honest. I've gone into greater depth about this overall experience with the members of my executive program because I think many of them can learn from and probably relate to that experience, though hopefully under less trying and adversarial circumstances. I was 31 years old at the time, and the youngest person in the branch by about 5 years. The receptionist was the next youngest, and she was like 36 or something. I was new to the company and new to the branch. They didn't know me, and I didn't know them. I didn't have any prior branch management experience, and to make matters worse, I was the son of the CEO of the company Patterson had just acquired. The comment circulating around the branch that later got back to me was, "They bought the old man's company and we inherited the kid." Not exactly a warm welcome filled with optimism. I like to joke that I've made a career out of exceeding low expectations, and this would be case in point. The Richmond branch of Patterson employed about 50 people. It generated about $35 million in revenue and covered about 2,000 customers. The branch was about 20% larger than any of the branches in the prior company, Thompson Dental Company, and was in Patterson's Group 2 segment out of 5 group sizes. By any order of measurement or magnitude, this was a very big business. Not your ideal starter job, if you know what I mean. An operating branch for Patterson was comprised of the following roles: territory sales, equipment sales, technology sales, CAD/CAM Xerox sales, technical service repair and installation, service department scheduling and parts, inventory, customer service, accounts receivable, collections, and general operations. I remember those roles pretty fondly because I knew how to do none of them. None. Not a single one was I qualified for. If someone quit, I couldn't step in and pick up the pieces. I didn't know the technical aspects of any of it, so how could I improve any of them along the way? This would be the equivalent of you as a dentist acquiring an ophthalmology practice. Yeah, it's a healthcare practice, but one is eyes and the other's teeth. And please don't tell me you're going to walk into an eye exam with a slow speed in your hand if your ophthalmologist abruptly quits on you. How could someone so completely and utterly incompetent be in charge of the whole thing? I knew the people in Richmond were asking that very question. There were a few times when I asked it of myself as well. When you have doubts about your own leadership qualifications, just know that I had the same doubts about mine. There are 2 truths about leadership that you need to embrace, and I'm going to share both of them with you after I ask you to share something with me. One of my early stage goals with the launch of this podcast is to get to 50 5-star reviews on Apple and 25 5-star reviews on Spotify within the first 60 days. So that's by July 31st. I'm at 40 on Apple and 15 on Spotify as of this recording. So if you value this content I'm sharing, please scroll down in the app on your phone and tap the 5-star button. Your rating helps the show get ranked for others who are searching for this kind of content. So if my thought leadership makes a difference for you, your rating makes a huge difference for me. Honestly, one of the things that keeps me going are the actual reviews themselves. Like when Chris Moo 75 says, "I've followed a lot of people in the dental space. Perrin's the one who's had the biggest impact on how I think about my practice. He helped me realize that owning a practice isn't just about being a great clinician, it's about building a great business." What I like most is that he actually understands dentistry. He's spent years working with practice owners and has built several businesses himself. So the advice is practical and relevant. If you own a dental practice, this podcast is worth your time. And if your goal is to build a group practice someday, I think it's a must listen. I think I know which Chris Moo 75 that is, and I really value his rating and his review. Chris, heartfelt thanks for that. Keep doing what you're doing. You run a great business too. Needless to say, I'd love to hear from you as well, so leave a shout out if you feel so inclined. I said that there were 2 truths about leadership that you need to embrace. One is that you're never truly prepared for the role you're about to take on. And the second is that you don't need to know how to do all of the roles under you to be a good leader or to be successful. Let me focus on that second one for a second. You're not going to create a better business outcome by being better at collecting accounts receivable than your AR person. You're not going to create better business outcomes by being better at converting new patient appointments than the person who handles those inquiries. You're not going to create better business outcomes by being better at case presentation and treatment conversion than your treatment coordinator. And you're not going to create better business outcomes by being better at diagnosing and performing more complicated clinical treatment than all of your associates. Your problem is that you think being an effective leader is having the answer to all of those questions. It isn't for you, and it wasn't for me in Richmond. The difference is that I actually couldn't do any of them. So I had to figure out a way to create greater outcomes through the work of those who did know how to do the craft. I didn't have an option. You think you do. I'm telling you that you don't. The mindset shift I'm asking you to embrace is that you are worthy of leadership and can be a great leader even when you don't know how to do all the jobs beneath you. That's critically important. And if you're willing to accept that, then here are your key takeaways for this episode. Every business has a few fundamentals that are critical to its success. These can be unique to different businesses, even though they're in the same sector. I ran 3 different businesses for Patterson over a 15-year period, and I can unequivocally tell you that the fundamentals of Richmond, New York, New Jersey, and Charlotte were all dramatically different. Same company, same overall operating structure and objective, totally different people with significantly different problems to fix and opportunities to capitalize on. If you have multiple practices, my advice is the following. Do not assume they're all the same. Frequently, they aren't. Here are 5 things to look for in each of them. 1, culture. I could do an hour on culture, so I'm going to boil it all down to this. Does the team in each practice work with one another, or do they work for one another? Think about that when you consider if culture is inhibiting performance. My solution in Richmond was to fire all the unhappy, disloyal, and dishonest people, then hire better replacements. Magically, it turned around. What are you tolerating? Number 2, execution. Small things add up to big things. Sloppiness and inattention to details is a cancer in a business. Broken appointments, holes in the schedule, phones not being answered, etc. I used to hate seeing pieces of paper or trash on the floor. How you do anything is how you do everything. Lead by example. My people knew my standard. Do yours? Number 3, customer experience. Your patients can vote with their feet. How are they greeted when they walk through the door? Make every visit count. We all have bad days and the pressures of life that distract us, but how we show up every morning is a choice. And the choice we make impacts the way our customers feel about their experience with us. I was the champion for my team, and I had a goal to meet with our top 50 customers every year to reinforce why they chose to do business with us. Are you delegating customer experience? Number 4, communication. I used to tell my teams that 90% of all the problems that I dealt with were rooted in communication failures. Didn't matter whether it was internal or external, overpromise and underdeliver, expectations and variance. A lack of clarity creates complexity, and complexity hinders performance. If I'm being clear here, are you? Number 5, competitive advantage. Almost every business can create competitive advantage, yet far too many succumb to the world of being commoditized. What can you do better? What can you be the best at? Cotton rolls were a commodity. Sirac was a competitive advantage. The Charlotte branch won 4 awards in 5 years due to playing to our strengths. Is your business a me too type of a business, or is it a unique business? Many of you reluctantly stepped into your role as leader or CEO and feared you were unqualified because you didn't know everything about the business you owned. You incorrectly assumed that your qualifications came from either being able to do all the roles in your business, or that your qualifications resulted from the simple fact that you owned the business. You were wrong on both counts. One qualifies you to be a manager, not a leader, and the other qualifies you to be, well, an owner. And that's not necessarily a leader either. So in the absence of any real definition, you've assumed the mantle of leader and the title of CEO because you like to point to holding your people accountable to delivering on KPIs. A few minutes ago, I gave you 5 key takeaways that are all drivers of the KPI outcomes you desire. Are you focused on the KPI, or are you focused on what drives the KPI? Maybe you need to rewind the episode and take a few notes on those 5 key takeaways again. I know that the change I created in the 3 businesses I ran for Patterson was unique to the needs and the circumstances for that specific branch at that specific point in time. An effective leader has to accurately diagnose the root cause of the issue, then figure out what action to take to bring about better results. That being said, even though those 3 businesses were unique, I used 4 common questions in leading my people to create better, greater results. After all, I had to lead them to create greater results because I myself didn't know how to do so. I'll share those 4 leadership questions with you on the next episode. If you're wondering what's next for you and your business, the answer's waiting for you on the Next Level Executive Podcast.
This podcast was edited by Resonate Recordings.